It is fair to say that some days run smoothly without a hitch, and others leave you reeling and wondering what on earth happened. In today's podcast, we're going to talk about what you can do to set yourself up for success and how to handle it when your day gets derailed.
You're listening to the Declutter Hub podcast, bringing you tried and tested, no-nonsense tips and advice from the leading experts in decluttering and organising your home. Now here are your hosts, Ingrid Jansen and Leslie Spellman.
Hello and welcome, listeners. I'm Ingrid.
And I'm Leslie.
If you're new to the Declutter Hub podcast, you're so welcome. What you'll find is that we try and find a fun factor in the serious business of decluttering. And if you've been here for a while, you know exactly what we mean. So thank you so much for listening.
If you'd like to get involved in conversations relating to this podcast, it all takes place in our Facebook group. So come and join our lovely, warm, supportive community. To find the Facebook group, go to declutterhub.com/group to find out more, or you can search for the Declutter Hub community on Facebook.
Well, Leslie, spill the beans. Tell me all your secrets. How do you make your day run smoothly? I am all ears.
Yeah, I know. If only I knew. I think it was interesting, right? Because before we hit record, we were like talking about our days, and obviously we're a decluttering podcast, so really we're talking about keeping your household ticking over. And I think it's fair to say, Ingrid, that in general, I'm not saying everything's immaculate and perfect all the time, because it is far from that, but it doesn't take as long us then as professional organisers to get things back on track.
Yeah.
So a lot of the things that we talk about, we definitely feel, but we feel it in a slightly different context. So we can relate to all of the things that we're talking about, but mostly that would be in a personal context or in a work-related context. And these things are kind of the same, effectively. The feelings that you have and the way that you have to plan your day and all that kind of stuff is the same, whether it's a house or whether it's work. And so some of it we're going to sort of cross those two things, because whilst our days don't get derailed that often in a domestic context, in a household context, or to the point that it becomes unmanageable, it absolutely does regularly within a work context. I think that's fair to say, right, Ingrid? Do our days run smoothly? I always feel like a fraud actually talking about it, because I'm like, how many of our days run smoothly?
When you're away on holiday, my day runs very smoothly.
Yeah, same, actually. Okay. So are you saying that we derail each other? Because I think the same as you. I'm fine when I'm just here and it's just me and Roz having a nice little chat, and you're away and I don't have to do anything, and same then, right? So we're derailing each other. Is that good? Is that a good thing?
Well, I think the thing is, when we're together, we discuss things, we make plans to move forward. So lots of work comes out of that. And I think when either of us is away, we're like, oh, we can finally get on with all the things that have been on our list for ages. So maybe that's the difference. But of course, we always have plans and things, but yeah.
If I'm being honest, I know you're kind of throwing shade back at me, but I think that the time that we get derailed are typically because something happens externally to the Declutter Hub and comes and derails us. Are you actually going to eat your words now, Ingrid, and not
No.
me derails you? Something happens. The point that we're trying to make is that we make great plans. We have an idea of the way things are going to go, but life, I'm trying to not swear here, but stuff happens, right?
Yeah,
Stuff happens in life that derails us and takes us off track.
Yeah.
And the whole idea of this podcast is to talk about the things that you can do to set yourself up for success, and what you do if it is not successful. If it is not as successful as you had hoped, when life gets in the way, how do you find a way to get yourself back in the saddle, as it were, and keep on going and not become demotivated by it?
Yeah.
So let's talk about, we will obviously talk about things in a domestic context.
Yeah.
How do we set ourselves up for success? What sort of things do we do on a daily basis, which means that the following day is going to be successful?
Well, Leslie, without a shadow of a doubt, I think the non-negotiables and daily resets. That for me is the basis of everything.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So let's talk about, because non-negotiables form part of a daily reset. So non-negotiables that you may or may not have heard us talk about before are in a number of different areas, and they are bespoke to you. Of course, there is crossover. So a lot of Ingrid's non-negotiables are my non-negotiables, but you need to work out for you in your home, in your situation, what your non-negotiables are. Sometimes if you're a mum of 5 kids, you might have a lot of non-negotiables, right? Because your life is complex and busy and there's a lot of multiple people to take into account. But for Ingrid and I, it would be basic things that we have determined we need to do on a daily or regular, more than once a day basis to make sure our home keeps ticking over to the point that it doesn't become unmanageable and it doesn't become a huge chore, a huge 1 hour, 2 hour job to go back to the way that we wanted it to be. So non-negotiables for us, and this is different for us because we've still got families at home and all that. If you're living on your own, the time scales may be very, very different. So we will typically put a load of washing on every day. In actual fact, mine's probably more likely every other day now because there's only actually most of the time me and Leah at home. But, when Nathan's back, it's every day. And so, you can't, think about things like loads of laundries. Think about how often you need to do your washing up. Things like that. Some people might get away with doing that once a day. Other people might need to do that 5 times a day. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So a dishwasher load might go on once a week in certain instances, or it might go on twice a day. Like sometimes for me, it's once a day, sometimes it's twice a day, sometimes it's 3 times a day, depending on what I'm doing and what the throughput is. But it's all about working out what your non-negotiables are. Ingrid, give some more pointers about what a non-negotiable and how people would come up with that, what they are.
For me, a non-negotiable is also definitely that I want the recycling done every day because I've got a thing on my kitchen counters. I want to have that emptied. I want to make sure that I don't see all that rubbish build up all the time. So I get the kids involved with that. For me, a non-negotiable is wiping down the kitchen counters and the kitchen table after breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I do that every day. I don't leave it and leave it and leave it. And then it becomes a massive chore. You might think to yourself, oh, actually, I have animals and pets at home that I need to take care of every day. That's a non-negotiable then for you. Your animals need to be fresh food and water and might need to be walked, and all of those things might be on your list. So everybody's non-negotiables are different, but you see a kind of a red thread in people's houses, right? Of things that it will be really helpful to do these every day and not let them build up.
And I think one of the things when you're talking about non-negotiables that's really important is to try and give yourself some context. We're talking about setting yourself up for success. And one of the very, very important things is to work out, okay, these are the things that I want to do at a certain time. And you also need to determine the time that you do them, because it's going to be very different if you're immediately launching into looking after those 5 kids, or if you've got to do the school run, or if you've got to go to work, or if you come back from work at lunchtime, so the timing of your daily reset might be very different. So you need to think about the timing, but very important, you need to think about how often you need to do a daily reset. Do you need to do a morning, lunchtime, evening? Is one a day enough, for example? And you need to look at your list of non-negotiables, which are probably going to be things like, I don't know, sweeping the floor, putting the laundry on, wiping the things, doing the recycling, all of those things. How long does this take you?
Yeah.
Because only when you know how long it's going to take you can you set yourself up for success and know that that is achievable. So one of the things that we have found, because what's one of the exercises that we do quite regularly with our members in challenges, all of those kind of things, is that people are surprised by how little time or how much time these things take.
Yeah.
Some things take much less time than you think they will, and some things take much more time. And that's because in your mind, because you've not done it as part of a daily reset, it's grown into something mammoth. Sometimes, I don't want to do the washing up because literally I've got pots from 3 days. And so it's something that weighs heavily on you. and you think it's going to take hours. Well, probably it has taken hours because you've let it build up. So what we want to do is we want to get you to a stage where the washing up actually takes you 20 minutes or 25 minutes, which is just life. That's life. We eat,
Yeah.
we use pots, we have to wash them up. There's no getting around that. That's just part of life. And there's no point in going, oh, I don't want to do that. We have to do it. It's non-negotiable and things like that. So
Yeah.
number one, think about what your non-negotiables are. Think about when you're going to do those non-negotiables as part of your daily resets. What's a sensible time? Don't do something that you're never going to be able to achieve. If you know that you're running around like a crazy thing in the morning before the school run, don't try and do your daily reset. Then try and do it later when you come back from the school run. If you've got time, you might have to get up early in the morning. You might have to do one late at night, whatever. And then really drill down on how long is this likely to take me, and is that achievable?
Yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes people really either underestimate or overestimate exactly what you said, Leslie. And I think once you actually put a clock next to it, it's like, oh, wow, this actually doesn't take me as long as I thought in the beginning. It really can make a massive difference to get an insight into those things that you have to do all the time, because it will help you manage your day a lot better. And of course, I know you're probably going to think, oh, this makes sense, but the less stuff you have, the easier it will be to do the cleaning, to do the daily resets, to do the tidying, to manage all of those things. Because of course, if you've got everything out on your kitchen counters and you have to pick everything up to wipe your sides, it's going to take a long time. When everything is streamlined and you've got everything as much as possible put away in cupboards and within easy reach and easy access, and your counters are emptier, it's much easier to give it all a wipe, right? Or if you have to wipe the kitchen table because you've had breakfast, lunch, or dinner there, but on the other half of your table, there's stuff piled up, it's going to be much trickier to wipe it. When it's empty, you can just kind of get a cloth, go over it, done, and it's all quick. So having less stuff around, having less clutter makes a tremendous difference.
And the problem is at the moment that, we've got lots of people here listening to this podcast that are at different stages of their decluttering journey. Everybody's got an interest in decluttering for sure. Some people will be feeling completely overwhelmed with the clutter in their home and think, how on earth would I wipe my work surfaces at this moment in time? How on earth would I open my post every day if that was one of my non-negotiables? I'm nowhere near that. And we have to do this kind of dual thing where we've got to start looking at daily resets as a possibility that may take a long time now because we're working around a lot of different stuff. Slowly but surely, as that stuff starts to kind of get pared down a little bit as part of the decluttering process, and we start to then simultaneously try to get these habits in place with the daily resets, things will slowly but surely start to become easier. So, but what we're saying is a daily reset for one person looks very different to a daily reset for another person based on where you are in your decluttering journey. But you have to try and do both simultaneously. A declutter, yes, we're called the Declutter Hub podcast, but we're also talking about mindset change and trying to get you to a place where your home runs like clockwork. Let's overstate this. Is my kitchen a bit of a tip at the moment? And I've got 10 pairs of shoes that could do with going upstairs. Of course I have. Do you know what I mean? But that's a 10-minute fix. It's not an overwhelming, insurmountable thing, and it will get done when I get around to it. And so it's really important to think about these things. And sometimes we've not thought about that. Our very first podcast is about the difference between decluttering, organizing, tidying, and cleaning. And it's so important to get those 4 things nailed and to work out how they fit on your decluttering journey.
Yeah.
So important.
Yeah. Another thing that we wanted to talk about as well is delegation of tasks. Now, of course, if you're by yourself in your house, you might not be able to delegate it to anybody else. You might be able to outsource some stuff to other people. But if you're part of, a family, if you've got kids, if you've got people coming to visit and things like that, can you delegate some of these tasks to other people so your day runs more smoothly? Sometimes I think we feel we have to do everything ourselves. And if there are other people in your house, they have hands, they have feet, they can do stuff, whatever age they are. I mean, even a 3-year-old kid, you can tell pick up your toy and put it in the basket here. It's you don't have to wait till they're like 16. They can do little jobs for you, and it can make all of the difference.
I think in the same way, Ingrid, that we were talking about this kind of decluttering stroke reset, kind of simultaneous working that's going to take time. I think the problem with delegation, if it's not something that you've done successfully in the past, particularly with children, with partners, or all of those kind of things, or with cleaners or anything else that you outsource to, it can take more time to set up that system than it can take to do it yourself. And so we almost have to put the groundwork in now to go, my goal is that my kids will put the recycling out every day, or my goal is that my kids will do the cleaning up after dinner every day, or whatever that is, because ultimately I need to grab some time back for myself. So what you've got to do is you've got to spend the time explaining things, making sure they've got the skills to do it, making sure that they know that this is not something that's not going to happen, that this has to happen, and that this is part of your rules going forward. You need some consistency to make sure that you set those wheels in motion. This is hard stuff, and we can all get to a stage where we're like, do you know what? I haven't got the energy to do this. I'm just going to do it myself. All of these things, working out your non-negotiables, timing them, thinking about when you're going to do your daily resets, trying to think about delegating if you've never done that in the past, trying to incorporate resets alongside a decluttering journey. This is all hard stuff, but you need to put the effort in to reap the rewards later. One of our members said ages ago, your future self will thank you for it. And so we have to put the groundwork in now, and later down the line, we will reap the rewards. Ingrid and I, just in context of work, have done really boring. This is the kind of thing that I absolutely loathe with a passion, putting like operating procedures and documents together to kind of say, this is what we need to do when we're doing a podcast or when we're doing a challenge or any of those things. But now, 5 years down the line, we are reaping the rewards because it's easier, much easier. We don't have to go back and reinvent the wheel every single time. We don't have to think about what we've got to do because it's all written down. Yeah. So we've got our own version of that within a work context, but it is hard, and you need to put the groundwork in now. So part of the sort of setting yourself up for success or setting yourself up for your day to run more smoothly is to invest time and energy into it to make it happen in the future. It's not going to happen overnight, right?
I think it's interesting, Leslie, because hearing you talk about it, it made me think back about when I came back from a weekend away recently. And I actually was very specific to the kids because the kids were around, and I was like, right, kids, Anne, can you put away the toys back in the toy cupboard? Because we bought like board games and things like that. And I went, Max, I want you to clear up the bag of shoes, and can you do this, and I'll do this. So everybody was kind of contributing at that moment to making the house look tidy again. But I was very specific in what I wanted them to do. I didn't say just tidy up the house, because they're like, it looks absolutely fine to me. But for me, the bag with shoes and the bag with stuff and the half unpacked suitcases, that was, bothering me. And I want that all to be cleared before I can kind of move on to the next thing. So I think being specific can really help as well in this situation.
Yeah, I think you definitely need to be specific. But I think also, Ingrid, the foundations, what we talked about before in terms of setting yourself up for success, the foundations are there because there is a place for the shoes, there is a place for the toys, and what needs to be done to get to do that kind of post-holiday reset, which is effectively what it is. So it's all about building those foundational blocks, isn't it? That's what's going to set yourself up for success. And it's not something that can be done overnight. So I wanted to talk a little bit about sort of goals, related to that. So it's so important, isn't it, to think about what your goals are. We've talked about, we've actually talked about goals already, without mentioning them. We've talked about non-negotiables. We've talked about daily reset. We've talked about timing. We've talked about delegation. These are all things that form part of goals. So your goal needs to be specific and smaller than I want to declutter and organize my house and I want my day to run more smoothly. Your goals need to be broken down into, but how am I going to achieve this? How am I going to get from feeling completely out of control on a daily basis to get into a stage where I know what needs to be done? where I've got the skills and I've got the people who are on board that I can delegate to, if that's a possibility for you. How is that going to happen? So you need to break it down. And you can't do all of those things at the same time. You can't incorporate daily resets and delegation and timing and decluttering, all of those things. You need to break it right down. That's what's going to give you success. And so many people are like, right, I'm on a decluttering journey. I'm going to listen to Ingrid and Leslie's podcast. I'm going to do all of the things. And we're like, break it down. Try one thing, get it nailed, move on to the next thing. These things take time because the habits associated with what we do at home are so ingrained, aren't they? The fact that we do everything for our kids a lot of times, and think, oh, I can't even be bothered, I'll just do it myself because it's too much, emotional energy associated with nagging effectively, which is what we've done all our lives. You know what I mean? To get them to do anything is more emotionally draining than doing it yourself, which is why we get ourselves stuck in a rut of not delegating, when actually we need to be stronger. We need to be more kind of vocal and say, no, I'm going to stick with this until it actually, and it's going to be a non-negotiable for you to help me. So I think the goals are important, aren't they, Ingrid, to break them down to something that is manageable.
Yes, I agree, Leslie. Goals are absolutely crucial. And we've talked a lot before this break about how to set yourself up for success. So let's go for a break. And then after break, we'll talk about, but what do you do if things get derailed all the time? So see you soon. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. We are talking about how you can make your day run more smoothly, but things happen. There's always spanners in the works, Leslie. Things you're like, oh, this is having a great day, and something happens, and boom, off the rails you are. But how can we make sure that we stop that from happening?
Well, I think the first thing is that we need to understand that this is a normal part of life. And so, our decluttering, our organizing, our tidying, our resets, they don't always happen. We're not perfect, are we? We can't. How can we, I was talking before, I've got shoes here, I've got boxes hanging around that I need to sort out. There are things that need to be done. And so we need to accept that this is a normal part of our home, of our families, of our lives. We're talking about domestically going through 24 hours and what happens. And so things happen all the time. It's about what you do when you get derailed and when you don't achieve what you wanted to achieve. So we talked a lot about goal setting. So a lot of it is about being realistic about what you can achieve. But it's also about learning from your mistakes, in inverted commas. I hesitate to use the word mistakes. But all of the journey that we go on with decluttering and organizing and trying to get ourselves back in control is about constant reviewing of what we're doing differently, what's working and what's not. So with every project that we do, we need to constantly review, because from that we're learning. So we're learning about timescales. We're learning about, okay, this was interesting. I did a kind of non-negotiable timing on how long it takes me to do my washing up. And I thought it was going to take me 10 minutes, and actually it takes me half an hour, and I have not got half an hour in the morning before I go out. So how am I going to fix that? How am I going to fix that problem? Yeah. When am I going to do things differently? Who am I going to involve that can do things differently? Do I need to get up earlier? Where's the review? What's the learning from this thing that I thought that I could do that actually derailed me and I got stuck at step one? How can I do that differently? Because the washing up's still got to be done. So we've got to find a different way. We can't not do the washing up. Well, we can for 4 days, but then we've got more than a daily reset, right? We've got a big chore and a big problem. So we need to constantly be reviewing and learning from the things that we see in front of us. So we need to be fully focused on our decluttering and organizing journey, to be fair. Yeah. And this needs to become a priority that we are going to try and think about and evaluate and learn from.
I think we see that a lot as well, Leslie, where donations, so people are like, okay, I've got a bag with some stuff that I want to donate. I've done a bit of decluttering. Yay, I made some time. I've done it. I've got a bag. And that bag then doesn't get put in the car. It gets put in a hallway to be donated at some point, or it actually does go in the car and then we drive around with it for weeks or months on end, but we don't make that finishing, that last step of actually donating that bag. And I think we also need to review that. Where is it going wrong? Are we just not, have we got a charity shop that is far too far and we have to make a trip out of it? Are we trying to find the perfect donation spot? While good enough is good enough, as long as it leaves our house, it's fine. Are we trying to individually get every piece of thing that we want to declutter to a different person, giving ourselves multiple jobs? I think that's where you see that a lot as well, right? We need to review and look at ourselves and go, I know I am decluttering. I've got a back, but what's derailing me here? What's holding me up? What's the problem? Where is it going wrong? And how can I make it easier for myself? How can I give grace to myself and go, you know what? As long as it gets donated, as long as it's being reused by somebody else, I've done a good job. And me trying to find the perfect spot for everything is just holding me back and not helping anybody here in the end.
You're absolutely right, because different people. So what we have in the Declutter is we use something called the cycle of success, which kind of talks about the 8 different steps that you've got. I think it's 8. Is it 8? I think it is 8. That you need to do. We're not going to go into that now, but there's basically steps that you need to do in order. And some people think decluttering is organizing, spend time organizing. Some people love the gathering with like. Some people love the tidying up bit of it. Some people jump all the way to the end before doing the starting and the preparation. As Ingrid says, some people don't get around to the donation bit of it, which is finished. Everyone gets stalled at a different point. And that evaluation is, where am I getting stalled? And is it just because I've set myself such a big goal that I can never realistically get to that point in a day? So therefore my goals or my projects then need to be much smaller. So it's about that evaluation of which bit of it is causing you problems. Now, it could be that you get stuck at the emotional stage of it. And so therefore you need to spend some more time looking at the emotional side of clutter and going, which individual emotions am I struggling with most and how can I work through those? And we've got a million podcasts on, well, not actually a million podcasts, 280 something. But we've got loads of podcasts talking about the emotions. So go back in to individual things and then where am I getting stalled and what can I do to change that? More often than not, the people who are decluttering their homes that get stuck are trying to do too much too quickly. That is our experience. And people are like, I'm going to do my whole house in a week. We've got people who join and go, yeah, I'm going to join for a month and I want to do my whole house. This is our membership. Like, it can be done, of course, if you know what you're doing and you just need that accountability. But invariably, if you want to change your clutter mindset for good, it's going to take a little bit longer, because if you just do everything for a month, then you're going to feel completely exhausted. And then it's going to get stuck where it is. And then you're going to have to come back again in 3 years' time when it all starts to build again and do it again. And what we're trying to get you to is a place where decluttering just becomes like it is for Ingrid and I. And I'm not, again, but don't want to use to think that we're going to live in these perfect homes, where it just happens as a matter of course. It's not a big deal. It's just part of our day-to-day thing. Oh, I don't know why we've got that. Why don't we just let that go? And, just we don't do big decluttering projects anymore. We might do big organizing projects and we might find some clutter, but it's really because we're organizing things because they've become a little bit unruly. And then we find a little bit cluttered during the process, right, Ingrid?
Yeah.
So that would be it. But we're not setting out to declutter because we need more space or because we feel like we've got an excess. It's more organizing the things and just resetting things a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's so important to think about that, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think what you said earlier, Leslie, about people trying to do far too much and completely wearing themselves out. I think people really underestimate how important it is to take a break when you're decluttering. Don't go this weekend, this whole day, I'm going to do 8 hours in a row. You have to plan those breaks. Really important. You have to make sure that in between you don't, you take time to have a drink, have a snack, have lunch, because it gives you energy to do another little bit after that. Or also you need to look at yourself, a lot as well. When am I at my best during the day? When is my strongest time? If you struggle with energy, saying to yourself, well, I've been really, my house is bad and I haven't done anything for months and I feel bad about it. This Saturday, I'm going to go in and I'm going to, if you know you can't do that, you're already setting yourself up for failure. And we don't want that. You have to be gracious to yourself and go, energy is a problem in my life. I have very limited amounts of it. I have to be really smart about it. how can I set myself up for success here? And how can I do a little bit? I'd rather that you do on a Saturday, 3 times half an hour spread over the day, than try to do 2 hours, wear yourself out completely, that you make yourself almost ill, if you know what I mean, and then need 3 or 4 days to recover from that 2 hour slot that you did. We don't want that for you. We want the best for you. We want you to work within your own limits, but recognize that you're moving forward one step at a time.
I know, exactly. No, it's really, really important, isn't it? And that is probably the biggest problem that we find, isn't it? Is that people want a kind of all or nothing scenario.
Yeah.
And we kind of jump from decluttering project to decluttering project with kind of 6-month gaps. You know, if you're that person who has been with us within our declutter hub, and you come to every challenge in January and you still feel as if you've not made any progress forward, you've gone for this kind of new year, new me sort of scenario, which is brilliant, but it has to be sustained throughout the year. We have to start and we have to go, okay, I'm going to do the learning, going to do the thinking. I'm looking at 2024, for example, if it was January this year, you know, as being my year to get this job done. And that kind of thing is more sensible. You know, what we see in our membership is the people that are like, I'm here for the long haul. I'm here for a year. I know it's going to take some time. I'm going to take it one step at a time so that it's not overwhelming. You know, if you need to put little bits of focus in so that you can understand that that's going to fit into your daily life to allow you to do the things that we want you to do, which to go out and have a nice time and do nice things with your family and watch TV and chill out and have some me time. We don't want you to be decluttering 5 hours a day for 2 months straight to get through your home, because that's going to be exhausting. It's going to be counterproductive. So it's so, so important. So how not to become derailed really is about that evaluation. You know, look at what you're doing with your resets, look at what you're doing with your decluttering projects and work out, where is this going wrong? Where am I stalling on these decluttering projects? What is it about my daily resets that means that I'm not getting them done? Am I doing them at the wrong time? Am I storing things up and thinking that it's a daily reset and actually it's a much bigger, kind of almost like a weekly reset? Do you know what I mean? Like, that I've got 3 days of stuff that I've got to deal with here. Where is it going wrong? It's all about that evaluation. And ultimately, it's about, as Ingrid said so well, it's about being kind and gracious to yourself, to know that this is life. You know, life happens around us, and we need to fit in the decluttering and the resets into that to make sure that we can thank our future selves for it, and we can move on seamlessly through life, smoothly through our day, without worrying and berating ourselves for the clutter that's waiting for us when we come home.
Yeah. And if you're thinking to yourself, wow, I've never ever thought about it this way. I've never even thought about non-negotiables, how to time myself and those kind of things. We have a course called Resets and Routines in that you can buy from us. So if you want to know more, I'll put the link in the show notes. So if you're like, yes, I am struggling with those daily things, those weekly and seasonal things, and I'm just jumping from one thing to the next and never anything gets finished, maybe that would be a perfect thing for you to have a look at. So like I said, I'll put the link in the show notes so you can have a look at the information.
Perfect. So how are we going to make our day run more smoothly, Ingrid, in a work context?
Well, I think we need to take more breaks, Leslie.
Yes.
We need to
Actually,
take more
not
breaks.
do any work, and then it won't get derailed. Like, just have a day off, and then there's no chance of it getting derailed. Perfect.
Exactly. And maybe we should bring back wine o'clock on Friday, 5 o'clock as well. I think
Yeah.
that's very important.
Yeah, exactly. All work and no play makes Jack, or makes Ingrid and Leslie a dull boys, girls, whatever. Yeah, no, it's good to go back to basics and to kind of understand what is going wrong here and how do we fix that, I think, isn't it? And that's what this podcast was all about.
Exactly. So listeners, tell us, what are you going to do differently to make sure that your day runs a little bit more smoothly and you don't get derailed all the time? We would love to hear from you. So thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for listening or watching if you're seeing this on YouTube. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. See you soon.
Thanks so much for listening to the Declutter Hub podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to us in your podcast player so you don't miss an episode, and we'll see you next week.